Okay? I will not fall into the stereotype of sounding like an old man and refer to the good old days, but I can indeed talk and back up with examples of how things have changed between then and now. My high school years were extremely enjoyable. I attended high school in a town called Brits in South Africa, a relatively small town, maybe 20,000 people. It was a lovely high school, and I was, of course, at boarding school there. Great friends, great teachers, and in those days we got away with what was considered mischief, acts of adventurous boys, which, if it was done today, one would surely end up being expelled. We didn't do anything that was criminal, nothing like doing drugs or smoking marijuana or whatever in that line. Of course, we did things like forging a signature or pretending that somebody signed us out of the boarding school for the weekend or whatever the case may be, and we would be off to some resort or whatever, or camp somewhere, or go to my dad's ranch, which we very often did. The ranch was about 120 miles north of town. Ranch's name, as I said, with the chapter description, Buffelsfontein in English, Buffalo Fountain. Now, at least once a month, my dad would pass through Brits to go and pay wages, etc., on the ranch, and he would pick up me and a couple of friends, and we would be on the ranch having fun, helping him sometimes, and other times we would be out in the bush hunting or just enjoying the wildlife and doing things like walking, snaring game, not snaring game, trapping game, shooting, anything that a kid would do of 17, 18 years old. Well, the other thing that I have to say is things were different then. I mean, me and my brother, we had our own rifles with us in our rooms in the closet. Nobody frowned about that. All the teachers knew we had our rifles there. They knew we were going weekends with my dad or whatever and go hunting. No problem. They would not frown if they see the rifles in our closets during, room inspection. But God forbid if they found a packet of cigarettes in your closet. Yeah, 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 yeah. Now, when we did sneak out to my dad's ranch, we would hunt impala or whatever the case may be, and make biltong. Biltong is it's a South African delicacy. It's actually dehydrated meat, a kind of dehydrated meat cured in its own brine and then left out to hang in a cool place, never in the sun, where it can be cured and, as I say, dehydrated. Now, biltong is made by cutting meat strips along the grain, maybe 3 inches wide, 2 inches thick, and about 12 to 18 inches long. You would then place the meat in a plastic tub, add salt, pepper, coriander to taste, followed by the next layer, meat, biltong, and the next layer would be placed in the tub, to which one would again add salt, pepper, coriander, etc., etc. And after 10 hours would be turned over so the top pieces would now be at the bottom. And the ones that were at the bottom would now be at the top of the tub. The reason of doing this is doing it this way was basically to ensure that all of the biltong was cured in its own brine. Then I said, and then of course the next step was to take paper clips and form them into S shape, hook it into one end of the biltong, and then hang each piece out in a well ventilated room, always in the shade, never in direct sunlight. And if possible, having a fan blow directly on the meat just to hasten the dehydration process. In about a week, the biltong was ready to eat. The best way to cut the biltong was to thinly slice it, this time against the grain. And voila, the best snack you can ever imagine. Now, just to clarify, we would make biltong the one weekend. And on the Sunday afternoon, we headed back to boarding school, thus having a week ahead as curing time for the biltong we made. The following weekend, we head back to the ranch, collect our biltong, and head back to Brits, where we'd be selling the biltong to local butchers. What a great way of ensuring that we always had pocket money. And so it was that myself and a friend of mine, Mace, Mouse, as we called him, in Afrikaans would be Mace, in English it will be Mouse. We found ourselves on the ranch. We were sitting around the fire, which we affectionately called the bush TV, relaxing and having coffee. We were not drinking. Remember, we were only 17 or 18 years old at the time. The next moment, we had shots fired. And they were not very far from where we were sitting around the fire. The next moment, we saw the beam of a spotlight against a clear, starry sky. And then and then the shocking reality. Poachers. Poachers. Looking at the spotlight beam, I knew exactly where they were. So we grabbed our rifles, jumped into the Jeep, and took off to where I expected the poachers to be. I knew the ranch like the palm of my hand, so I did not turn on the vehicle lights, but rather drove in the dark and made my way to the old alfalfa field, as we called it. Sure as hell, we saw their vehicle. It was a futile idea to even consider apprehending them. Poachers are dangerous and won't hesitate to shoot you in order to avoid arrest or confrontation. I told myself the only solution was to disable their vehicle, and at the same time, we needed to avoid being seen, or likely we even get hurt or shot. They were obviously not aware of our presence, and at that stage, we ourselves did not even know how many of them were in the party. Then we did what we had to do. The moment their vehicle turned our way, we let them rip, and each shooting about 3 or 4 shots into the front of their vehicle, into the radiator, destroying the radiator of that vehicle. There was no way their vehicle was going anywhere. We made our, we then took off like bats out of hell back home, putting as much distance between them and us in the shortest possible time. It was about 3 miles back home, but it felt like an eternity back home. We tried calling for help, but we experienced phone problems. In those days, we had what we had called coffee mill phones. Because those you hand crank it and you get through to the exchange, and then they would connect you with the number you would like to be connected to. And I don't know if the old lady was sleeping behind the phone or what, but we just took us literally it felt like ages before we eventually got connected to him and managed to get hold of the police. And it was just about daylight because we then had to flee the house as well because we didn't know if the poachers were going to come to the house and do us harm there. So when we eventually got hold of the police and told them where we are, Mace and I walked through the bush to the a farm road connecting the farmhouse with the main road. And my goodness, man, eventually, at first light, eventually the police came and we took them to where the incident took place, where we confronted the poachers the previous night. And lo and behold, there were three poachers, and to everybody's astonishment, they were later identified as a policeman, a state prosecutor, known as a district attorney in America, and a junior magistrate. I left the police and rushed back home to the ranch house to call my dad. But alas, it was a small community, and the phone operator then told me, no, he had called my dad a long time ago. He will be on the ranch shortly. He called him hours ago to tell him what was going on, and he should be on the ranch any minute now. When he arrived, of course, we had a lot to discuss, and Mason and I were basically seen as heroes for what we did, etc., etc., etc. Well, one thing that we forgot is that we were actually on the ranch without my dad's permission. And he saw the biltong that we made, and then he did the whole damn thing came to light. Why we never needed any pocket money, and etc., 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 etc. That's when he decided, yeah, he was going to cut us down to size by telling us we are, we think we're that great, but we're just as guilty of what the poachers did. I says, what do you mean? He says, you're out here without my permission. You were out here poaching. You didn't hunt with my permission. You were poaching yourselves. You were using your own rifles, but you were using it on my ranch without my permission. Man, and we basically we were guilty of conduct unbecoming the same as the poachers were. Yeah. I'll never forget these words. You buggers are on the ranch without my knowledge and permission. And you are both equally guilty of trespassing and hunting without permission. Of course, he did not make a big deal out of it. But I guess, he was kind of surprised or impressed by our ingenious way of generating our own pocket money. But anyhow, he made something to eat. And the next thing he said to him, okay, guys, you enjoy the rest of your Sunday here. I'm going back to Pretoria. Hope you make it safely back to boarding school. And we just stood there, dumbstruck, and he left. And we had to make our way back to boarding school by hitchhiking back again. That was it.
But you were heroes in the newspaper.
It made the local little newspaper. We had a readership of about 10 people, if you can put it that way. But yeah, but but that was it. Then I have a biltong recipe here, but I'm not going to go into the biltong recipe. It's in the book. Yeah, that's all for now.
So what would you say you learned from your dad that day?
I thought he was a bloody smart ass by not taking us back with him. But I guess I could understand. He taught us a lesson. We got there without his permission, so make your own way back.
So I guess you could say he was fair.
He was fair. Of course, he was fair. We didn't see it exactly as fair right then and then, but He told us, no, you got yours. Fair is fair. You made your way here. You made your biltong. You got your pocket money. Take your biltong, go and sell it. Make your own way back.
Oh, Kana, he was a wise one.